Welcome back. Today we will study Module 3 for the subject of business communication, and we start with chapter 10. Any communication in terms of business is incomplete without written aspect to it. And when we talk of written aspect, we talk about or we understand the concept of business letters. So business letters act as an important tool in the business communication process, without which the process or without which the communication can sometimes not be held valid. So today we will understand the various parts of business letter. Now, apparently speaking, business letter can be more or large, divided into two parts. One of it to be the obligatory part, that is the compulsory part. Without these certain heads in the business letter, the letter is incomplete. And then we have something which is known as the optional part. Depending on what kind of correspondence we have to communicate with the receiver, we can use these particular parts to complete the business letter. So let's start with understanding the various components or the 7 important aspects or the 7 important parts that are the compulsory parts to a business letter. The very first part is the head address. Now, as the name head address suggests, is basically where the sender, the one who is going to write that particular letter, writes his name and address on the topmost part of the letter. Basically, it acts as a further course of correspondence to the receiver. So the head address, also known as the sender's address, is the very first part of your business letter. Then we move to the second most important part, which basically makes the letter valid and legal in terms of the fact that in case if there is any sort of inquiry into consideration, that particular part that we are going to discuss now makes it valid and legal in existence. That part is known as the date. When we talk of date, the ideal format, the most accepted format in the current situation, in the current era of communication, is the concept of month, date and year. Given an example, you normally write it to be from the point of view of January 1, 2021. Okay, so month, the date and the year. That's the format, that's the ideally accepted format worldwide when we talk of date. So as we said, without the date in the business letter, your letter will have no legal value, will have no legal existence. Post which, then we move to the third aspect, which is known as the inside address. Now, as the name inside address suggests, it is the address of the receiver. So the name and address of the receiver is what is mentioned in the inside address. Naturally, the sender needs to let the one who is going to read the letter know that this letter is addressed specifically to you. Hence, inside address plays a very important role or very important part of your business letter. So we are done with 3 things: the head address, that is the sender's address, we are done with the date, we've done with the format for it, and we are done with the inside address, which is the receiver's address. Now, what is the fourth part? Let's look into detail. So the fourth part, which is a compulsory or the obligatory part of a business letter, is the part of salutation. Now, salutation basically is a greeting to the receiver who is going to read this particular letter. So if you are drafting a letter to your respective principal, you will always use the word respected principal sir, respected principal ma'am. If you're writing it to somebody who is in the terms of political party and higher in terms of age, you'll always write honorable minister, honorable prime minister. And informal letters, or if you are writing letters to, or formally also, but if you're writing it to people who in a way have some sort of, informal relations with, you can use the salutation of dear. So basically they are, polite words to greet the person, to make him or her feel on a better parameter. After salutation, then we move to the most important aspect, which is the body, which basically is the content as to what you have drafted in terms of your letter. What you want to convey to the receiver is the body of a letter. So when we have a furthermore parameter where we are understanding that what are the constituents or what are the parameters, factors you need to keep in mind to make sure that your body is very effective in terms of the letter writing concept, right? So that we do later, but as moving on, we understand that body is the content of your letter, which highlights or which speaks about what exactly is that the sender wants the receiver to know. After you're done with the body, the sixth part is the complementary closure. Now, the complementary closure basically is a polite way of ending your letter. So, depending on what salutation you have used, if you use respected sir, respected ma'am, then your complementary closure also will be in sync with the same, and you will write yours respectfully, yours faithfully, yours sincerely. So that ways you are giving them a saying that, okay, thank you so much for reading my letter. This is the end of the letter, and now I'm waiting for a further correspondence from your end. And the last important or the compulsory or the obligatory part of a business letter is your signature. Without a signature, the letter in a way is invalid. It means there is no proof as to किसने क्या लिखा है, क्यों लिखा है. What is the proof or what is the significance to it? Hence, the signatory block consists of three things. That is the signature itself, right? Second is the name of the person who is signing this. And the third is the designation of the person who is writing this. Now, let's understand it word by word. When I say the signature holds utmost importance, utter importance in a letter, that is because many a times we have the secretaries writing these letters on behalf of their bosses. So in case if she is giving a correspondence to the receiver, she is the one who has initiated the conversation, she will be writing or she will be giving her signature. She will be writing her full name. So in case if I, being a secretary of my boss, have written a letter, I am going to write IT, if that's what my signature's initials are, then I'm going to write my full name. So, Ishita Tavadia. And then I'm going to write my designation. So, secretary to Mr. XYZ, whoever is the particular boss. So, that gives the receiver a guarantee, or it gives him or her an idea that this letter has been drafted by the secretary on the instructions of the boss, and she is a party to know as to what conversation or communication or correspondence is happening between the sender and the receiver. So let's quickly go through these 7 parts. The very first of it being the head address, which can be also understood as the sender's address. Then we have the date or the date line, that apparently should be in the format of the month, date and the year. Then we move forward to the inside address, which is known as the receiver's address. Then we have the salutation, that is greeting them respectfully, dear sir, respected sir, whatsoever it be. The next part is the body of the letter, the content that highlights as to what is the reason that you have had this correspondence. Then we move to having a proper polite ending in the form of complementary closure. And then the last, to make it utmost valid, to make it significant in nature, we have the signatory block, that is to be signed maybe by the one who's written the letter, or maybe if it's written on behalf of him. Then the concept of mentioning the full name and the designation of the person who has signed and written this letter makes the completion of the important or the compulsory or the obligatory parts of a business letter. Now we'll move to understanding the optional parts. They may be a part of the letter depending on what type of correspondence is into consideration. Let's look at it one by one and understand it in further more detail. Let's look at the optional parts to a business letter. The very first of it being the confidential or private notation. Now, what basically this confidential or private notation means is that in case if the letter is being written for the receiver, in terms of the fact that it has to be confidential in nature, nobody else should read that particular letter, then on the envelope as well as on the letter, as soon as you are done writing the date, you mention the fact that it is confidential so that nobody goes ahead to read the contents of the letter. Right? So either after the reference line or just below the date line, you can write the words confidential, or you can write private, right, as a notation. and that can be done either in capital or maybe in bold handwriting, or maybe writing it in a normal format and just making an underline for the same, so that people understand that that is a letter not to be read by anybody else except for the person whom it is addressed to. So you read the inside address and you just make it a point that okay, किसी के हाथ में होना चाहिए, this person only supposed to read the same. So confidential and private notation is an optional part of your letter. Private notation basically is written when you are writing to somebody who is working in an organization, but you have written it in their organizational address. So you may have written it to a manager, but on their official address. Hence, you use the word private. So that's where your confidential and optional notation come into picture. Then we move to the second component, or the second point, or the second part of a business letter that could be optional or not mandatory depending on the correspondence, as I said earlier, is the concept or is the notation of reference number. Now, reference number basically is a number in a certain series. So depending on organization to organization, what is the way they are asking or they have maintained their reference number, you can mention the reference number in case if it is a correspondence to a previous letter. If somebody has sent you a certain query and the reference number for it is mentioned and you are replying to it in the same format, I mean in response to it, then you need to also make sure that you are writing the reference number. And where do you write this reference number? Exactly opposite side of the date. So if date is on the left hand side of your paper, when we'll understand the formats, we'll see the various formats to it. So if on the left hand side of your paper is where you've written the date using the full block layout, then exactly opposite to it on the right hand side, you write the reference number. So that completes two parts of an optional letter. Now let's look at the third part, which is the attention line. Now, attention line basically is a line or the name of the person who is particularly handling that particular correspondence or particular matter. So, for example, I may be writing to company XYZ with whom I'm having my business relations as a supplier, but from that I know that Mr. Amal Bosco is the one who is handling this particular purchase order or sales order query. So, when I draft a letter and I have already had a certain correspondence with him earlier, as an attention line, I will write for Mr. So-and-so, right? So that the letter from the official premises goes to that person, and since we already are in connection, he will know that what was the previous correspondence and reply to my letter accordingly. After that, we move to the fourth optional point, which is the subject or the caption line. Now, the subject or caption line is similar to how a title of an article in newspapers is basically drawing your attention to the fact that this letter is written for this particular purpose. So, if it is a letter of application, it is a letter of sick leave, or you want to go for a certain wedding and you want certain number of leaves, or it is a letter of resignation that we want to discuss, letter of confirmation. So you just write it in crisp words stating what the content of your body, what the content of your letter is going to be in one single line. So caption line or subject line, it can be used simultaneously or it can be synonyms to each other. The fifth part is the reference line. Now, how reference line is different from the reference number? Reference numbers would be certain series of numbers, or probably alphabetically spaced with numbers, and that's how they keep in touch. Filing system from the organization perspective, it becomes easy. That's why they use reference number. Now, reference lines basically means letters that are written in solicited format. What is the concept of solicited? Is where you are writing a letter in response to something that you have seen. So if there is an application of job availability in a certain organization and you are drafting a letter for an application for the same, so your reference line would be in response to advertisement in Times of India, date so and so. Okay, so that is the difference between reference number and reference line. After reference line, the sixth optional part is your postscriptum, also known as PS or postscript. Basically, this is in case if you missed out some important point in your content of the letter, right? You put it as a postscript. या ये भी देख लेना, और ये भी है, वो भी है, ऐसे करके. And in terms of sales letter, when we'll be discussing various kinds of letters. One of it is to be sales letter. Now, what is sales letter? Sales letter. Sales letter basically are the letters written by organizations for mass customers and consumers, so that they are letting the people know that we are out with this product. We have certain discounts. This is a benefit of you being a part of our organization, using our product services. So they are generalized letter. They are specified, they do not have a specific customer in head. It's not like this letter is written for Ajay, this letter is written for Kajal, this letter is written for Shahrukh. This letter is written for by and large all my future prospective consumers, from a whole point of the fact that वो मेरे product को try करें. So certain times for sales letter, they use this postscriptum part or postscriptum phase to highlight the attention that flat 15% off if you get the sales letter and if you come to buy a product, or offers offer last till stocks available. Okay, something like that, just to highlight your attention कि ये सब तो है lucrative offers, उसके बाद अगर ये है तो आप हमारे पास आ सकते हैं. So two ways it could be understood. In case if it's more serious in nature, something with regards to business correspondence, and if you missed out some important point, okay, contact person Mr. So and so, or the date till when I want this letter to be replied back should be so and so. So वो मैं PS postscript या postscript में डाल सकती हूँ. And as I said, from the concept of sales letter, they use it to highlight the point that in case if you come down quickly to take our offer and services, product and services, you will get great offers. Let's move to the seventh aspect or the seventh part of the business letter, which is the part of enclosures. Enclosures, okay, the short form for which is ENCL dot. Right, the abbreviation for it. Now, enclosures basically are the list, the checklist of whatever is attached along with the letter. So, say for example, as we were discussing sales letter, if I have written a sales letter to highlight to my future customers that there is a kind of a sale in my organization with regards to various products and services, along with that particular sales letter, I am also going to attach with them. Along or put in their envelope maybe the discount coupon, maybe the brochure of the product and services, maybe the address card. Three things I may have put. So in enclosures, basically I'll after the end of my letter I'll write ENCL dot and then one brochure of the product, 2 discount ticket, 3 address of wherever it is. So 3 things that I have attached along with the main letter is where I am using the whole concept of enclosures. Some letters could not have any sort of enclosures. It could just be a single document, just the letter and it's done with. So there you don't need the enclosures concept. Then after the enclosures, we use what is famously known as carbon copy, CC or BCC, blind carbon copy. Now, carbon copy basically in the earlier days when we didn't have the computers to send multiple, the emails, we didn't have emails to send multiple copies at one point in time. What business organizations would do, they would keep one main paper, then they would keep a blue color carbon copy or a black color carbon copy, multiple copies depending on how many copies they want to make, and they would then send the letters in that format, I mean accordingly to multiple people. But now we are fortunate enough, we have the technology, so we use the CC in the emails. So when we'll be understanding the principles of effective email writing, we will also discuss what is CC. So CC, as the name suggests, is carbon copy or copy closed, means a copy attached with it. And in the whole concept of CC, that is carbon copy, it is basically that all the people who are receiving that particular correspondence are aware that even other people have received it, or maybe whoever is the main receiver for it is aware of the fact that there are multiple other people who also receive the similar kind of copy. So in case if you're writing or if the principal is drafting a letter for the teachers, for a particular teacher who may have been appointed, so in CC he may put the admin head, he may also put the clerical head, he may also put the coordinator that okay, I have selected this particular teacher, this is what the remuneration is going to be, she's going to join from so and so date, and since you as an admin staff are going to validate the salary, you as a clerical staff are going to make the muster roll, and as a coordinator you want to schedule her lectures, you also need to know that these are the terms and conditions of her appointment, and that's where CC is into consideration. What is BCC? BCC is blind carbon copy or blank carbon copy. Now here, in the fact that it is a fact that the receiver and multiple receivers are not aware about who all have received this particular document, right? So in the email, when again you are using it to spread across your sales letter, sell across a certain product, the spam messages that we get. So you will see that our names always appear, our email IDs, our usernames always appear in the BCC. Means they're sending this mail to multiple people, and multiple people are not aware that who are the other people who have also received this particular mail. So it's like you just want it to be secretive in it. Right? So that's where we understand the concept of CC and BCC, depending on what kind of secrecy or what kind of people you want to keep in loop for that particular correspondence. Then we move to a very important concept, in a way an optional part, but as we had discussed earlier, that in case if it is a secretary or a junior person writing it for a senior person, we use this optional part in the business letter to make it more evident that this letter has been drafted by somebody and has been dictated by somebody. So the concept of initials, right? Or identifications. So initials or identifications are basically where the one who is dictating a particular letter, his name / the one who has written that particular, the typist maybe for that letter, his or her name is mentioned at the top, at the bottom corner of the letter, so as to make it understood that future mein agar kuch hota hai, who should be responsible, who had dictated this particular letter, on the boss had dictated. So the person who has dictated the letter, his or her name's initials. So say for example, if it is Ishita Tavadia who has dictated the letter, so it will be IAT / if I have dictated it to, say for example, Jihan Faizad Dubash, my junior, so his name's initials, that is JFD, will be in small. So capital 3 IAT / the one who is typing the letter on behalf of me, his initials will be in small. So IAT capital / JFD in small. So that's how we understand the concept of initials or identification. And last but not the least is the concept of superscription. Superscription, as the name suggests, superscription. Okay, so the name, the address, the head address and the inside address that's there on in the letter, on the envelope, you write the same thing so that you know whom has to be given this particular letter to. Agar isko in case if you want to post it, so by post. So under superscription, you mention the word by post. If it is going to go by some registered post, then registered post. So whatever the mailing instructions are, and at the same point in time, the head and the inside address are mentioned on the envelope. That makes it as an optional part to a business letter in case if it goes in a letter format, if it goes in a virtual handwritten hard copy format. So that's where we understand the optional parts of a business letter.